is Nana, and I'm your banana guide to exploring the reading world.
And I'm Adrian. I'm one of Nana's many friends.
It's nice to have you here, Adrian.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Now let's dive right into this book. Now, last time we analyzed the coddling of the American mind and compared it to the allegory of the king. This episode, we will be challenging and diving into the nuances of the book. Now, Adrian will read us the essential question of this episode.
Plato's allegory of the king warns the shadows of reality can imprison our minds. Does the modern well-intentioned push for safetyism, as described in the coddling of the American mind, represent a new, comfortable cave where we can voluntarily chain ourselves to the shadows of our own feelings?
That's a great question, Adrian. Now let's get started. But first, let me read a question you'll think about while we discuss. In the coddling of the American mind, Lukianoff and Haidt argue that safetyism hinders emotional resilience. But if our society is technically safer than ever, is the fragility they describe a necessary adaptation to a complex information ecosystem, or a genuine regression in human cognitive fortitude? We're going to talk about safetyism and whether it's an external or an internal force driven by oneself.
Alright, you want me to start? My opinion is safetyism is an external sort of an external barrier put around you, because there are parts of the world that don't want you to see certain things going on in life. You want to help me out here?
Well, I also do agree with you, but let me elaborate on that a little bit. I also believe it could also be internal through external force. A lot of the times, parents force this idea of safetyism upon their children, and then often throughout, as they grow through childhood, the children often follow that idea of safetyism in their own minds as they go through life, because they believe that's the only way of living life.
I do believe that many parts of the world, safetyism has a different definition to each and every child. There are kids over here that don't know what war is, but there are kids outside of here that have experienced war. I feel like the safetyism over there could be greatly different than the one over here.
And this is why I personally believe the idea of the sun from the allegory of the cave can be compared to the idea of anti-fragility. Anti-fragility has been heavily dissolved throughout history due to parents adapting this idea of safetyism because they want to shield their children from their past, even though the world is constantly getting worse and worse.
Is identifying and labeling microaggressions a genuine pursuit of truth, or, as argued in coddling, a shadow that distorts reality and weakens resilience?
I believe that it's a shadow that distorts reality, because when we see these microaggressions, when we deem things to be microaggressions, we often take things for a turn for the worse when sometimes their intentions aren't as bad as the outcome. It is good to take a step back and ask yourself, what would you do in their shoes, or how would you feel in their shoes? And if you were to do that, would you really have the intention you think they're having? What do you think?
I feel like it just all depends on how you look at the situation and how you take control of it.
Okay, so what is microaggressions?
Microaggressions, from the book's perspective, microaggressions can be determined as things we deem that are being taken out on us for no distinct reasons, or little things, let's say someone doesn't say good morning to you, or someone is ignoring you. These microaggressions, we can believe to be built up, but sometimes let's say that person really just didn't notice you, or they just didn't see you. That's why they wouldn't say good morning. But since it's from your perspective, you don't take the second to realize why they're doing what they're doing.
So have you guys ever experienced something where you've accidentally had a microaggression against somebody?
I've had someone bring it to my attention, but like I said, it's something I wasn't aware of, because it's from their perspective, it could have been seen as aggressive, but for me, I didn't know. And they said that I didn't say good morning to them, and I felt so bad, but it's because I just didn't see them.
What about you, Adrian?
I'm an honest person, so yes, I do. so they may see that as me ignoring them.
What is your definition of the comparison of shadows versus microaggressions?
So we're just comparing. So shadows are lies, microaggressions are...
The truth turned into... Wait, no, the shadows are also...
Shadows are just basically a lie.
Shadows are the distorted reality. Like, they're true, but they're fake. It's fake versions of the truth. Same as microaggressions can be the truth to somebody else, but...
It's all a matter of perspective, basically.
Yeah. Same with shadows. Like, if you just... When you realize that it's a fire, or like the bird or whatever casting the shadow, you realize that it's real, but it's not the version of the truth you thought it was.
Here's a question to think about to add on to that. Think about the perspective of the person that's having the microaggression against someone, and also the person that is chained, that is having forced to watch the shadows.
The person that is being forced to watch the shadows is living a life which one can consider to be a lie, but also
Say that louder.
It's the truth for them. They're living a life of a lie, but it's in their perspective. It's their truth. But they don't understand that.
yeah, but it could also be determined as ignorance is bliss, because before the people in the cave realized that it was fake, they weren't really questioning it as much, but as soon as one person questioned it and took the time to go and see the sun, they lived this life. It was no longer bliss because they learned that their whole life was a lie. So sometimes living in absence of the truth can be more fulfilling than finding out the truth, but it can also be the same for the other way around. Because when you're being told that your whole life is a lie, or that someone's doing something that you thought was true but now it's a lie, now you don't know who to trust or where to go or anything really. You don't know what is real.
What is your definition of the goodness of the fire?
The fire, in the allegory of the cave, the fire is what's behind like the bird puppet that's casting like the bird onto the wall.
So like the reason behind it.
It's the reason, it's what is causing the truth to be distorted. So it's like when a person is like gaslighting you, that can be determined as they can be the so-called fire.
Can I put something in?
Yes.
What does gas start? If you light gas, what does it start?
Farting?
It starts a flame.
Yeah, it starts a fire.
It starts a
So
fire.
gas lighting could be said as starting a fire.
Yes. So yeah, a lot of the time when someone distorts someone else's reality, it's through these toxic ideals such as gaslighting or any like other forms of emotional abuse. But sometimes people can perceive things that aren't being like held against them as things being held against them. Like the person seeing the microaggression as a microaggression when it's not really a microaggression, or they didn't intend it to be a microaggression.
In Plato's cave, the fire is purely an illusion. In the coddling argument, many protective measures, trigger warnings, emotional care, originate from well-intentioned but misguiding pedagogical tools. Can you analyze when good intentions become deceptive?
Good intentions can become deceptive when the outcome hurts people. But a lot of the time, it's impossible to please everyone. But like the idea that someone has good intentions but a bad outcome is also ties back into the idea of safetyism, because a lot of the times parents have these good intentions to shield their children from the pain of the world. But a lot of the time, they're shielding them so much that they're not, when they get thrown into the world, they're not ready for what the truth really is. Like they're not ready for the sun. They want to stay in the cave and they're just not prepared for anything at all.
I feel like that is a very good statement indeed, because there are many movies that I have watched that are like that, where you can see someone in their 30s or 40s still living with their parents because their parents spoil them or like keep them hidden from the world, that once they get thrown out, their only choice is usually becoming homeless, and they don't know what to do. They don't have a work ethic, they don't have a plan to go out to the world to actually achieve something for themselves. They've always had it done for them. But as the parent, they might see what they were doing as like a better way to help their kid, like giving them stuff that they never had as a child. But I feel like that usually lead to a bad result.
Let me ask you something that a lot of parents have said to their children and what your opinion is on it. You're just a kid. What are you supposed to know?
You're supposed to know what your parents know. You're supposed to know what they tell you. You're supposed to be able to bounce back because of your parents. And if you're not able to have that ability, it's because of your parents, more often than not. Or your caregivers or whoever raises you. The whole purpose of being a parent is to prepare your child for the real world. If you're not able to do that, then you're hiding the world from them and not having this idea of anti-fragility. Because you expect your children to be prepared to grow up and move out into the real world. But when you're not preparing them for any of this, how are they supposed to do that?
I feel like when a parent tells the kid, you're just a kid, what are you supposed to know? I feel like that really doesn't make sense, because even if you're still a kid, you are able to have a mature mind. You are able to know and learn things for yourself instead of having the parents tell you. There's ways you can take control of that, and I always feel like there are things that kids know more than their parents that their parents won't admit, because maybe the kid's been through something, or like the world changes and the parents haven't lived in the world that we're living in right now. So there's some things they don't know that we could know.
What is the role of the escaped prisoner?
So the role of the escaped prisoner can go to two categories. There's one where he can go back to the people who are unknowledge of the information he has, or he could just keep it to himself and escape for himself. The role of an escaped prisoner, I feel like, should be to tell the other people who unknowingly have been lied to, or still view something as it's not. I feel like the escaped prisoner should tell the reality of what's truly happening.
I believe that it is up to the escaped prisoner to decide this, but I personally believe that if they were to return to the cave to tell these people, they aren't going to believe them, because they uphold this ignorance is bliss idea. And imagine if you had this life, like you believed that the sky was always orange, and but you've been inside your whole life, and someone went out and so they came back in and they said the sky was blue. Would you believe them? No, because everybody knows the sky is orange. So why would you believe that the sky is blue? If you had this idea your whole life, how can it so easily be altered? You have to see it for yourself. But people are so afraid of finding out that the truth isn't real, they won't believe the escaped prisoner.
Is avoiding discomfort always a weakening cave behavior, or can creating safe spaces allow for the necessary mental health recovery to engage with the world later?
I believe that creating safe spaces can allow for you to ease your way into believing what really is the truth, but it's not a healthy way to do it. I believe that even when it's hard to face the truth, it's something you need to take hold of, and you need to understand and take your time and just sit in it for yourself. You have to bask in the sun, or you just dip your toes in the sand, or stand in the shadow of the sun rather than the shadow in the cave. You need just time to process it, but you need to do it straightforward.
I agree with that. I feel like once you learn about something, it may be hard to actually admit it. It may be hard to come to the reality of it, but it eventually will come. And I'd rather have it sooner than later, because the more time you wait, the harder it gets to realize it. And sometimes if you wait too long, the moment you realize it, something else will happen, or just time moves on. I feel like you shouldn't stay stuck on one thing. You should deal with it, then move on to the next.
Another way to better process this is by putting on so-called sunglasses, where you can see part of the truth momentarily before you take off your sunglasses. So let's say that you do find out that the sky is really blue and not orange. Maybe you wear these glasses that make the sky look red, like another color, while you're still it looks closer to orange but not quite blue. It takes you time to process that it is blue, and then as soon as you take those sunglasses off, you realize that the sky really is blue. That's all for today's Deep Dive, Nana Nation. I hope this breakdown helped you peel back the layers of these complex ideas without losing your appeal. Don't let these great untruths make you go bananas. We'll see you next episode.